Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this sixth episode of Matterport Shop Talk. I appreciate you attending today. We've got a really good one for you today. I've got a couple special guests and a video that I've been looking forward to showing you for a long time and making for a long time. So let's check it out. This is what we've got going on today. I will be talking about how to back up and restore your model data from Capture. So I know this is something that a lot of people have been waiting for. This has finally happened. So I'm very excited to present that. And after that, we've got Kirk and Indy with us. Kirk was with us in the first Shop Talk episode, so welcome back, Kirk. And Indy Sen, our VP of Product Marketing, is with us as well, who will be talking about Android, iOS beta, and ProCam firmware. So let's get going. First, let me just say welcome to Kirk and Indy.
Thanks, Amir.
Thanks, Amir. Great to be here.
All right, thanks guys for taking the time to help present this information. So yeah, let's just go ahead on to the next slide, and let me try and get that video going for you.
Welcome, Matterporters. Thanks for joining me in this video. Today, I wanted to talk to you about how to back up and restore your model data from Capture. This is really critical because for so many reasons, you are eventually going to need to back up your model data. Model data in Capture is the raw data. This is where you can make changes, add markings, remove markings, send all that new data up to the cloud to be processed. Eventually, you are going to run out of space on your mobile device, so you will need to back that up, erase it from the Capture app, and then you can move forward with more scanning. You may have also recently upgraded your device and you want to migrate some of those scan positions. Maybe it's a model that you're currently working on and need to capture a few more scans. So how are you going to migrate that from your old iPad to the new iPad so that you can continue adding more content and then upload so that everything is in a single model? So today we're going to look at using two applications, iTunes and iExplorer. You can also use things like iMazing. It's very similar to iExplorer. For this demonstration, I'm just going to stick to iExplorer. First step is take your iPad or iPhone, connect it via the USB cable to your computer. Now I'm just going to go ahead and launch iTunes. And the first time you ever launch iTunes and connect it to your mobile device, it is going to need to sync up. So you kind of go through that process. You'll see a little button on there that says to sync the device. Once iTunes and my mobile device are communicating, I can go ahead and go to the next step. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at how to access your capture data using iExplorer. And I'll cover why we're going to do that in a little bit. But in order to get a third-party application like iExplorer and iMazing to see what's inside Capture, you're going to need to launch iTunes and go into the preferences first. So I'm going to go into the preferences here, go into Advanced, and I need to make sure that Share iTunes Library XML with other applications is selected. So check that box and then hit OK. At this point, I really no longer need iTunes. I can just use the third-party applications. The reason I'm going to use iTunes and not just only use iExplorer is because if I'm already backing up everything inside Capture, I may as well use a tool that was developed by Apple since I'm using an Apple device. So the next step after our preferences in iTunes are set and our iPad is connected, I go to this button right up here. This is supposed to look like a little iPad or iPhone. Just click on that to access the device. And now I can see the device. And one thing that I don't want to do, I'm not going to back up using this backup now option. What this does, as you might know, is back up everything inside the iPad, not just Capture itself. So in order to minimize the amount of data that's transferred over to my computer, I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to go into File Sharing right here, and then select Capture. Once I've selected Capture, I can see all of the content within Capture appears here. Now, I really don't need to pay attention to most of this, except for two things. The DB files, these files right here, and the Jobs folder right here. The DB files, these are the database files. These hold a lot of information that Capture needs to show you what models you have in Capture. The jobs folder is what actually has the scan data itself. So those are the two that make up all the information you need to back up from Capture in order to restore any other models you have. Unlike the third-party applications, like I mentioned, iExplorer and iMazing, iTunes cannot see any of the models specifically within the jobs folder. So I know they're all in there because I see that I've got 233 megabytes. In your case, you may have gigabytes worth of information. So what I'm using iTunes to do is really just back up the entire jobs folder. I can't specify a certain job that I want. We'll get to that in a second. So I'll select the jobs folder, I'll select the DB files, and I can hit save, or I can just move this over and drag them onto the desktop. So it's going to copy over, and you can see the blue status bar right here working its way across. And as soon as that's done, I know that everything is backed up onto my computer. Now, to be extra cautious, before you delete that information from your mobile device from Capture, it's a good idea to have a second backup. This is really critical information. You don't want to have this stuff lost. Computers crash, iPads, iPhones, they fall, they break. So to have this information in more than one location is a good idea. Now, before I go ahead and delete this information from Capture so I can free up that space and go scan again, I want to show you how I would do this with iExplorer. So I've launched iExplorer, and just like with iTunes, I need to go ahead and find that capture data. So I'll expand the Apps tab right here. And in here, you can see I have Capture available. I can click on that. Now you'll see right away that this is very, very similar to iTunes in that I can see everything, including the database files in the jobs folder that are within the Capture application. The very critical and unique difference here is that with this application, as opposed to iTunes, I can expand the jobs folder to see the models within. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that the names of my folders inside the jobs folder are not named the same as what I have my models named. So this makes it a little bit more difficult to know which folder represents which model. The way I go about doing this is by using two things. The date modified column right here, I can adjust this to see the date these were modified, and based on the date, I can get a pretty good idea of which model this is referring to. Also, I can go ahead and expand one of these to see what's within, and I have this little thumbnail, the same thumbnail that's used in Capture to identify the model. So usually the thumbnail along with the modified date allows me to know exactly which model is in which folder. And if there's any kind of question whatsoever, I'll just go ahead and back up more than one folder. So now let's say this is the model that I want to back up. I'll go ahead and collapse that again and select it. I'll just move this over and I can just drag and drop right onto the desktop. So no difference there. So now that we've looked at copying everything over using iTunes or copying specific models using iExplorer, I want to go ahead and delete everything from the Capture app so I can free up that space and continue scanning. In order to do that, you use either iTunes or iExplorer, and it's the same way for both. You just select the jobs folder. I'll select my database files as well, and I'll just hit delete if you're using iTunes or command delete if you're on the Mac using iExplorer. I'll get a message. I'll say delete, and that information has now been deleted. Now on my iPad, I want to make sure that everything is updated, so I'm going to kill Capture from running in the background in case it still is. I'll just double tap the home screen and swipe up on Capture. Now I know it's deleted from the background. Tap Capture again, and you can see that everything is now gone. Now let's go ahead and restore things back. So to restore things back, I can use iExplorer to restore specific models from within the jobs folder, or I can restore the entire jobs folder itself. Let's go ahead and start by using iTunes in order to restore the entire jobs folder. So I'm back in iTunes. I'll press file sharing again and go into Capture. So in this case, I want to restore everything that I've backed up back into the Capture app. So I'll use the add button right here, or just like before, I can move this over and just drag and drop. I don't need the database files because these are just to be on the safe side in case Capture doesn't recreate the database files as it should. You always have a backup of those as well. But for the most part, it has not failed me yet. I will move this over and just hit replace. I'm going to replace the empty jobs folder that was just created by Capture. Now with my new jobs folder, you can see that it's got some information in there. It's not just 0. I can go ahead and double tap the home button again to kill Capture from running in the background so that it again goes through that launch process and regenerates those database files. Launch Capture, and you can see that all my model information is back where it used to be. Now, let's say I just wanted to restore 1 or 2 of those models, or I have these models and I just want to restore a model that was, backed up a long time ago. In this case, we are going to use iExplorer because we're just copying the one model and not the entire jobs folder. So I'm going to go into iExplorer and I'll move this over, and I can expand, but I don't have to. I'll expand the jobs to see the job folders that are in there, and I can look at another backup that I've done a while back, and I can just pick any one of these models. But let's say I've expanded this, I've looked at the thumbnail, I can see which model this is, and I'll just grab this whole model folder and bring it right into the jobs folder here. That'll copy over, and now I've got that. So what I'll do now again is make sure that Capture is killed from running in the background, so again it can launch and regenerate those database files. So I'll double tap, make sure it's gone, and okay. And there you go. Now you saw that I have 7 models instead of just the original 6 that I previously backed up. And that's it. So backing up and restoring is really quite simple. There's not a whole lot to it. Just a matter of getting your iPad or iPhone connected to iTunes to generate the backup if you're going with all of the model data, or if you want to specify certain models within the jobs folder to be backed up or to be restored, you can use something like iExplorer or iMazing as well. I hope this information was helpful, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, so I really hope that was helpful. And we're going to have that video. It's already on YouTube. We'll send an email out after this webinar with links to that, and as well as to iExplorer and iMazing, so you can check those out. And that's it. We will have a Q&A at the end, of course. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to go over any of that. Okay, let's check out what we've got next. All right, it's up to Kirk and Indy to talk to us all about Android, iOS, and firmware. What's up, guys?
Hey. Thanks, Amir. Great to be here, and hello, Shop Talk. So we're going to kick this off. There are a lot of exciting updates for you. Kirk and I are going to be providing. Kirk's my counterpart on the product team. I look after product marketing, so really thrilled to be here. So today we're going to talk to you about a couple things. We're going to go over the very exciting Android Capture beta. So Matterport's coming to Android from a controller standpoint, and we're definitely looking to bring it to feature parity with iOS, but super exciting. I think this is one of the things that a lot of our users have been asking for quite some time now, and I think it just opens up a world of opportunity for folks to discover our technologies, as well as give our customers more flexibility as to how they deploy Matterport and how they do it. So really excited to share the details with you on that. We'll also cover some updates on the iOS current public beta, some really exciting new additions to the camera lineups that we will cover, as well as some updates on the Pro camera and firmware over there. So let's get going. So just as a reminder, I think one of the things that we try to do here at Matterport and just laser focused on is just making sure that we can meet you where you are, right, in terms of both your needs and giving you the utmost flexibility in terms of like what kind of cameras you can use to do what type of jobs you really want, right? I think our really belief, one of our central pillars, is to make sure that we can have a camera for every job that you have. So, I think when you look at this current lineup, obviously the Pro 2, our flagship camera, is something that we've been having for a couple of years now. It is the gold standard when it comes to like doing Matterport captures. A great mix of both like image resolution as well as like speed. And whether you're trying to do a simple like residential real estate job to a more complex large industrial job, it's many of our customers obviously know that it's the right tool for the job. But that's not to say that we know that there are other use cases that that folks have. And obviously in the lineup, you know, with Leica as well as like 360 cameras and iOS, there's just we know that depending on the jobs that you have, there's a lot of like things that you need the right camera. So our belief has always been to try and meet you where you are, and so that's why we're so excited to kind of expand our lineup and show you what we have in the works. So if we move to the next slide, here are some really great updates for you, and something that we're thrilled to announce is that you know, when it comes to our 360 cameras and our friends over at Ricoh, we're going to be offering support for the Theta SE2 that's coming soon. The Theta SE2 is actually in the Ricoh lineup one of the more affordable cameras, also very kind of versatile. And again, in the spirit of like making sure that we can meet you where you are, we know that that's something that a lot of folks have been requesting. We've also been working very closely with our friends over at Insta to deliver compatibility with the One R. So that's something actually we'll go into more detail as Kirk talks about the iOS and Android capture updates. But working very closely with the Insta team to kind of deliver that functionality. And you know, the One R, amazing piece of kit. You know, there's just a lot of like versatility that it has, and so we're thrilled to offer that support. But not to bury the lead, but you know, the biggest thing here is really for us, and given how closely our customers have been following this, is the smartphone capture Android capture module and controller for Matterport. So really excited with this development. This is something that, you know, again, we knew there was a lot of pent-up demand for. So without any further ado, let me hand it off over to Kirk to walk you through what we have.
Thank you, Indy. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So as some of you know, we've been running a beta program with Capture on Android, and we wanted to make sure everybody's aware of it. We want to talk through a few details about what is supported, what's not supported, how you try it, what's coming next, and all those good things. So in general, right now, our focus on Capture for Android is on your connected cameras. So right now, we don't have support for the capturing with your Android phone or tablet camera. This is all the connected cameras like the Matterport Pro 2 and the 360 cameras from Insta360 and Ricoh. Coming soon, or coming in the short term, will be the original Pro camera from Matterport, and the BLK360, and as Indy had mentioned, the SC2. And then in the next phase, we'll also do smartphone capture. So that's where you use the camera that's in your Android phone or tablet to rotate around and capture your space. So what do you need if you want to try this? So you need to be on Android 8 or above. And so there's 8, 9, 10, and 11 is in beta now, and that's coming out with the new crop of Pixel devices. So you need to be on a relatively modern version of Android. Your device needs to have 3 gig of RAM or higher, and that sometimes is a little hard to determine, so you can look that up on the web, or you can go to your system settings and find out. The reason we need that is because we do a lot of computational stuff on the device, and so we need to make sure that there's enough working memory to be able to capture and synthesize the space. Again, this works on phones and tablets with Android. We don't currently support Chromebooks right now. There are some Chromebooks where you can run Android apps on the Chromebook, but that's not supported at the moment. So if you want to give it a try, you go to matterport.com/beta, and you follow the links for Android. And the mechanism to try right now is really simple. You join a Google group, and you use the same email that you have used in your Play Store on your Android device. That will automatically enable you for seeing Capture Beta in the Play Store. Sometimes it takes an hour or two before that will show up, but once you find it, then you can install it and continue getting set up. And there's a bunch of instructions on the beta website for how to go through getting set up and making sure you've got the account and all that stuff. So check out those details. Now, that said, one of the things we find is that the most common issues with anybody trying the beta is that they use the wrong, or not the wrong email, a different email than which they use to sign into the Play Store. So the key is whatever you use to sign into the Play Store on your Android device, that's the email you want to use to join the Google group. If you still don't see Capture in the Play Store, then check your Android version and check to see what kind of hardware you've got, whether you have enough RAM. Those are the most common issues with people who are trying to join the beta and still don't see it for some reason. If you're using the Insta360 One R, one of the most common issues we're seeing with folks who are still having a bunch of errors and trouble is that it's not running the beta firmware. And that's one thing that is an additional step that you need to do with the 1R. There's beta firmware that we are working with Insta360 in collaboration for the beta program. They will be releasing this into production soon before Android comes out of beta. But right now you have to basically, for the 1R, use the Android beta and install beta firmware on your 1R camera. And there's instructions on this on Matterport.com. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So after the phase that we're in now, we're going to move to an open beta. And an open beta simply means you don't have to sign up for the Google group. There's no hoops or anything you have to go through. It will be open in the Play Store. Anybody can try it. And as we move to that stage, we're making sure that all of our features are available, all the features are in check, and we're getting to feature parity with Capture on iOS. So that means using assisted alignment in really large spaces, making sure you can convert Place 360s to 3D, do firmware updates on the Pro cameras, all that good stuff. So we're kind of maturing as we go through the program, and each phase moves to a further state of maturity, and then obviously we'll release in the Play Store as our final general availability release. So phase 2 is where we do smartphone capture, and that again is where you're using the camera on the phone itself or the iPad to capture space, just like Matterport for iPhone. So that's kind of it in the recap for Matterport for Android. We'd love to get more folks on the beta. Please try it out. There's instructions on the beta website. If you've got feedback, send it to Matterport, capture-beta@matterport.com. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the beta. So this is that was topic 1 of 3 betas. So let's talk about the second beta that we've got, which is, if you go to the next slide. On iOS, we've been running an open beta for Capture version 4.03. And so this comes with a couple exciting things. If folks are not aware, we've been finally making some improvements for using the BLK360. As folks who have used the BLK360 know, we've had several annoying issues in terms of the connectivity between your iPad and the BLK360 scanner. We've finally put those issues to bed. We've updated all the latest libraries from Leica. We're testing with the latest firmware. And so we're very, very, very happy to be able to say that the BLK360 is now finally operating at the way that it should be. We're still working through a couple of smaller issues and bugs, but 4.03 will be released in the App Store within a few weeks once we conclude the beta. And we're very happy to be bringing these fixes to the release. Now, as Indy had said, we also are supporting the 1R from Insta360. The same approach, the same rules apply in terms of the 1R. We need beta firmware on the 1R, and those instructions are matterport.com/beta. And we'd be happy to have everybody try that as soon as they can. And the one other thing we're doing in 4.03 is we've made a major effort to try and improve our crash reporting and our stability statistics. So I know this is building a foundation for improving where we're going. Excuse me, this is building a foundation for where we're going with the app and improving our stability. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide a minute. Okay, so our last beta is Pro Camera firmware, and you can sign up at matterport.com/beta, surprisingly enough. And this is, again, improving stability and trying to reduce the bugs that we're seeing with the Pro Camera. So please give it a shot, sign up there, and you'll be getting enabled in batches as we go forward, and you'll get a notification in Capture when you're connected to the camera that you can update to that beta firmware. And I think that's it for our 3 betas. Back to you, Amir.
All right, great. Thanks. That's awesome, and a lot of work being done on betas. So as Kirk mentioned, matterport.com/beta. Check it out if you want to help out. We'd love your feedback. Great. So we're doing very, very well for in terms of timing. I just want to cover a couple more things before we get to our Q&A. I've seen a few questions coming in, so we want to address those. Support. So outside of this webinar, as you know, we have a full-on support team. If you ever run into any problems, questions that you need addressed, urgent or not, please reach out. They're happy to help. And if you're in the US, you can reach them at this number here, 408-805-3347. You can always email them from anywhere in the world, support@matterport.com. As well as if you go to our support page, which is found in the resources right up here, go to matterport.com, you'll see resources at the top. First thing there is support. Go to that page, scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the phone number that is right for your geolocation. Wherever you're located in the world, the phone number you see, that's right for you. We did recently open up a couple Q&A, support staff members for APAC. So if you are in Singapore or Asia, check that out as well. You should be able to, if you go, let me specify actually, if you go to the support page and then go to the help center, if you look at the support page, you'll, at the very top of the support page is a button that says help center. Click on that, go to support pages. It's at support.matterport.com. Also, scroll down to the bottom, go to your ask a question button there. And if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you'll see all of the phone numbers for every region. So APAC is listed there. I don't know if it's updated yet, you know, as I mentioned before on the support page itself, but it is in the help center. Okay, so upgrading to a new plan, is it for me? Some people, yes, some people may still be on the fence. It's something that it's very individual, right? So it's something that you want to look at your invoice at the end of every month and make sure that, you know, if you are on the classic plans, that what you're paying is hopefully less than the new plan. If it's not, then you need to switch over to the new plan. It's really that simple. So check that out. And there too, if you need any help with the invoice and better understanding it, because I know the classic plans are much more confusing, which is why we moved to the new plans. So if you have any kind of billing related questions or issues, reach out to the support team and they'll be able to help you kind of navigate that invoice and better know whether you better off with a new plan. And as we just mentioned, the 1R is in beta, and I just added here the kind of a screenshot of what you're going to see when you go to matterport.com/betas. The firmware of the 1R also needs to be upgraded. So if you are using the 1R, make sure you've got that. And what else? That's about it. Oh, and you know, with regards to your account at around the middle, you know, of every month, there are going to be some accounts that are not up to date with their payment, and we do send out 3 messages, emails, and so forth to make contact with anybody who is not up to date with their billing before anything gets shut down. So I think that's doing pretty much as much as we can to notify the account owner. So if you're not getting notified of things, please make sure, or even if you are getting notified, just go ahead and get in there, make sure that your account information, your profile information, phone number, email address, all that is up to date, so that just in case if you run into that situation, you don't get left behind. Last thing we want is to shut down your account. So yeah, so just make sure that those contact information is fully up to date so that we can reach you. All right, lastly, Facebook. Facebook.com/Matterport. This is our official corporate, Facebook page where we update everything with regards to, things happening with betas, product updates, things like that. So if you're on there, you'll be with your finger on the pulse of what's going on with Matterport. So check that out. And we do notice that from time to time, you guys submit or not submit, but tell us about your fantastic spaces, your models that you've been scanning and doing such a great job, and some of these models are absolutely phenomenal. So we'd love to share them in our gallery and in our Destination Everywhere website. So if you are willing to share those with us, please check out the nomination form. If you go to go.matterport.com/nominate-your-space, you'll get to a form where you can submit your models or several of your models, and we'll be happy to check them out and post them onto the gallery. So that's it. Let's check out what we have in Q&A. I'm just going to go ahead and stop sharing on the screen there. All right.
Hey, Amir, can I jump in? I was going to answer one question that came in for the group that was a common one for everybody. So in terms of the two different beta applications, so on iOS and Android, the question was, hey, do these updates happen automatically? How does that work? So on Android, the default is to auto update any application that comes out with a new update. So in theory, on Android, you should auto update, and a new version of the beta would just get auto installed. If you've changed that, then that won't obviously happen. On iOS, iOS is in the App Store, the default is to install automatically, but betas on iOS happen a little bit differently. So they happen through an application called TestFlight, and TestFlight is essentially Apple's beta channel. And so in TestFlight, you'll get a notification if you've allowed notifications to happen when there's a new version, and then you have to explicitly install it yourself. So just if you're on the iOS beta, watch out for that. You need to be paying attention to TestFlight. It's not going to happen automatically. Okay. Thanks, Amir.
Very good. Great. I have a question here from Tom. Mentions how do we back up using macOS 10.15.5 Catalina. Tom did mention that iTunes is no longer a thing on the new OS, which is true and super unfortunate. Basically, you would just use iExplorer. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to use iExplorer or iAmazing to get that. I need to look into that. I should probably upgrade my OS so that I can better understand. Kirk, do you have any experience with the latest OS? Because I know with previous versions, like what I'm running, as I mentioned, you have to check that mark for XML.
Right. So in the latest version of Mac OS, they've split that apart. So the general finder, the File Explorer on Mac OS, essentially has a lot of the synchronization features that you used to have now that we're part of iTunes. So when you connect your device to the latest OS, you'll see that folder structure, and you can do the file operations that you're doing there. But it's just not in an application called iTunes anymore. So basically, with the new one, plug your device in, verify your iOS device is allowed to talk to it, and then you should be able to see it in the Finder folder structure.
Okay, so you don't even need iTunes. You can just use the Finder itself.
Yeah, that portion, that capability in iTunes kind of moved into the Finder, the general operating system for the latest version of macOS.
All right, great. So
for bulk snapshots, like when you want to do, like you said in the video, like when you want to take an entire snapshot of your device, that's a great way to do it. If you're specific about taking different jobs off, then iExplorer is probably your better bet.
Got it. Fantastic, and I'll make an update to that video as soon as I update my OS when I feel safe doing so. Okay, and yes, Tom, that is made by Macroplant. iExplorer is made by Macroplant, and iAmazing, if you just go to iamazing.com, you'll find that there. In the video in YouTube, which you'll get a link to in the follow-up email to this webinar, there will be links to all of that stuff in the description below the video. Okay. Let's see, anybody else got any questions? I have a question from Matthew regarding backup. Is there a backup method which keeps the trim, windows, and mirror markings? I use iAmazing, and when I restore the backup, that information is lost. To be honest, Matthew, that's very strange to me because I've never had those markings get lost like that. That information is part of the jobs data that gets backed up. I don't even believe it's related to the database files. Shouldn't matter whether you're using iAmazing, iExplorer, or iTunes. That's a that's a weird thing. So sorry you're running into that, but Kirk, do you have a better answer than I don't know what's happening?
Yeah, that does sound strange because the markings themselves are embedded as part of that job folder that you're pulling off. So that shouldn't be lost. That sounds like a strange bug. I guess if you can send an example into capture-beta@matterport.com, we would be able to take a look. But in general, if you're taking that whole job folder back and forth, it should restore just fine.
Yeah,
that sounds strange.
All right, let's see, any more questions?
I've had a couple come in here around allowing schematic floor plans with 360 cameras and smartphone capture. And so the general issue here is that the partners that we currently use and the partners that we use to generate schematic floor plans, most of the folks that are looking for that are looking for good dimensional accuracy. And the 360 cameras and the smartphone capture cameras are synthesized depth data. So the accuracy is a little bit less, and sometimes you can have some misalignments and things like that. So we know that there's plenty of third parties that do schematic floor plans for 360 camera models. Right now, we don't offer that. That is a topic of discussion in terms of how we would be able to say what's the level of quality and accuracy and reliability that you can get from those kinds of things. And that's why we want to enable more partners as well. So that basically we have an array, kind of a marketplace of partners that would be able to serve different kinds of models. So at the moment, not yet, but it is a topic of discussion.
Yeah. Great. Alice asked a really good question and a scenario that I didn't mention in the video. This is something that we've actually run into with backing up with another use case where there were two teams. So the question is this: I need to transfer scans from a GC account to the facility's owner account. What is the process for doing that? So, okay, two things. One, if you're talking about processed models in your account, you can transfer that between accounts by going into the little 3-dot menu, and you should be able to see a little transfer model, and then you just put in the email of the user that you want to transfer that to. That being said, if we're talking about backing up and model data that's in your iPad, so my example was where there were two teams, one like a very late night shift kind of team where these were restaurants were empty, and so they would go around scanning the restaurant, and then they would transfer that model data to the day shift that would scan the parking lot. The parking lot was scanned with the BLK, and the indoors was scanned with the Matterport Pro 2. And yeah, so basically that's exactly what they would do. They would use something like iExplorer to move that model that was just created and captured from team A to, let's say, like a Google Cloud account. Team B would then download that information, restore that into their iPad, and then go into the location and continue scanning with the BLK to align the rest of it to get the outside. So yeah, that's another cool use case for backing up.
I'm going to combine a couple questions into one. Some of the questions are coming in around importing drone-based data, importing general 3D data, importing data from different 3D scanners, kind of like the BLK2Go, which is a handheld LiDAR scanner, synthesized 3D clouds from drones and photogrammetry and stuff like that. So we don't have anything that's currently coming soon in terms of that, but in general, that notion of can we take additional 3D data and imagery from other sources that are not directly tied to capture and a specific camera and import that and synthesize a model? That is a topic that's been in our backlog and discussion for a while. And the purpose, I think, is where folks are going is, you know, can we augment a model that we are creating, a space that we're creating with our connected camera, and can we do it with additional devices that don't have a direct integration or direct connection and for real-time capture? So those kinds of things that are, I would classify not real-time captures where the Matterport Capture app is talking to these devices, but you've synthesized and grabbed that data somewhere else and pull it in. That is something that's very interesting to us, and we know there's demand for that. It's just not coming super soon.
Yeah. Yeah, Benjamin just asked, I think basically the same questions. Have you tried transferring model between devices, i.e. backing up to a PC and restoring to a different device? Yeah, there should be no problem with that. I think as long as you're using, certainly if you're using the latest version of Capture, there should be absolutely no problem. So we got a comment here for you, Kirk. It would be great if you can include GoPro cameras to be compatible with Matterport. Any plans on including that?
We would love to. So one of the problems is that GoPro ended their developer program, I think in 2017. So here's the way this works in terms of cameras and other devices that we work with. So the camera manufacturer has to have some way for Matterport and Capture to talk to it. Typically, that means there's a software development kit, there's APIs, there's a language that we can use to talk to it. So, for instance, GoPro used to have a developer program where they offered this so that other people like us could write an application and talk to the GoPro. But GoPro had to make a strategic decision a couple of years back, and they decided to really focus, and they dropped the developer program. So there's currently no way to actually talk to a GoPro via a third party officially like that. Now we have, there is the parallel to importing the 3D data. There's just importing 360 equirectangular spherical images. So for instance, if you have gone through and shot a place with a GoPro 360 or any other 360 camera that we don't currently directly support, it is possible to run through and synthesize that into a space in a model. And so that's another thing that's in our queue that is similar to importing 3D data, is to say, hey, whatever camera you've got, let's pull that stuff in. Now, there's another class of cameras, the 360s that we currently support, like the 360s from Ricoh and Insta360. They speak a protocol called the Open Spherical Camera Spec, and this is the thing that Google developed a while back for Google Street View. So there are several cameras that speak OSC, and what you'll see then is the Capture can start to talk to them, but usually there's a little bit extra that's required. So just speaking OSC as a protocol isn't enough to be fully functional. And so, there's a couple of new manufacturers that have come out with cameras that speak that. One of Insta360's high-end cameras, the Pro 2, speaks OSC, and you'll see that it's mostly functional, but there's still a couple bugs. So that was a long answer to the GoPro question, but in general, that's kind of the lay of the land. The rule of thumb is that aside from a general import, we do need to do actual integration work with each camera manufacturer. And if they don't support that, we haven't taken the tactic of trying to hack it, where basically we just figure a way to make it work, because the next update they do could break that.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to that opening up to just, any panel. All right, Thomas has a couple questions actually. Are there plans to allow the floor plan generation from 360 cameras? We kind of touched on this earlier. And are there any plans to end classic plans in the future? So regarding the floor plans and 360 cameras, Indy, Kirk, I think there are plans. Like Kirk mentioned, the reason why they're not a thing right now is because these are 2D cameras. They capture a 2D spherical image that we then convert into 3D. Therefore, they are accurate to within 4 to 8%, as opposed to the 1% accuracy, or within 1% accuracy that you're getting with the Pro 2. And so, yeah, so floor plans are going to be off potentially, by 8%, worst case scenario, which plus or minus, which could end up, on a, 4,000 square foot home, that could add up to quite a bit. So I think for that reason right now, until that accuracy kind of is made better, that's why they're not allowed to do floor plans with those cameras. And as far as the ending the classic plans, no, there's no, not that I know of, no future plans to cancel those. Those are still a thing.
So Amir, I was just going to chime in. I do see a question from Chris about, so I'm going to read out his question. My question is virtual staging. I saw you touched on this a while ago. Is this an option? So yeah, Chris, very much so still. This is something I think we're seeing a lot of our customers and just even partners, if you think about Redfin, who are building virtual tours of and stagings of different properties. So still very much a very big use case on our side. And the way we think about supporting it is that we certainly have like some partners in our ecosystem who specialize in this. They use our technologies, and we work very closely with them, such as Roomy. So that's pretty much a very self-serve kind of thing that you can do via partnerships. And then in terms of doing it yourself, obviously this is something you can do also. I think given the lineup of cameras that we have, whether you have a Pro 2 or a 360, especially if it's a virtual staging of a residential property, I think this is something where you can build a model again very quickly yourself using a combination of a 360 and Matterport, and then just kind of organize the staging yourself. So both options, I would say, via partners. Roomy is obviously a great one there, or do it yourself, but still very much a use case that we look forward to continuing to support, because we see a lot of demand, especially in times like these, right, where it's hard to kind of view properties in person. So there's obviously a trend of virtual staging that's here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing more of that virtual staging, especially with the SDK. If you missed out on the last Shop Talk, episode 5, we had Dominique on here talking about the SDK, and we ran through some pretty cool stuff. So check it out. It's available on YouTube in the Shop Talk playlist, and it does go into a little bit of being able to use the SDK to do virtual staging yourself, and not being reliant on third-party tools. So very, very neat.
Yeah.
Chris asked, I don't know who, I'll throw this out there. I'll ask the question on behalf of Chris, and we'll see who has got the best answer here. Any future aerial drone scanning options? It would be very nice to be able to scan the exterior with a drone and incorporate that into the model. Couldn't agree more with you, Chris. That would be absolutely spectacular. Anything coming down?
Yeah, so I think this falls into the bucket of two realms. If there are, and there was a similar question around, if I took 360s from my drone, can I place them into the model? How do I get them like a place 360 view? So there's two parts here. One is taking and importing 360s, either as standalone 360 views that are linked into the model, or using them to synthesize the model. So that's the general, what we call import 360s path. Basically take content that's created from devices that are not direct integrated cameras, pull them into the model, however you'd like to do that. So that's definitely a track that's in the queue. Don't have a timeline for that, but we're very interested in doing that, because that expands the funnel quite a bit in terms of what you can do with your spaces. Importing 3D, importing actual point clouds synthesized from drones, from photogrammetry, from actual other sensors, that falls back to what I said before in terms of another import path of the 3D data itself. And that's a second track for the import realm. Right now, we're focused mostly on getting the 360 import realm working, just because that's simpler and more general. The 3D realm starts to get a little more specialized, especially if you're trying to make a tour. Like if your objective is a 3D space in a virtual model, and you're not so worried about the imagery, then the point cloud import is fine. But if you want an actual tour with high definition imagery, then just having a point cloud for the exterior is suboptimal. So very exciting topics, definitely in our queue.
Nice, looking forward to that as well. That's going to be very exciting.
I've got one or two. Let me, oh, sorry, Amir.
No, go ahead.
Let's do one or two quick. So there's a couple of questions that have come in terms of when we're working with 360 cameras, controlling the settings in terms of brightness and quality and all the different camera controls that you typically would have when you're taking a shot using the 360 camera manufacturer's application. So Capture overrides that stuff because we want to take high definition HDR imagery and we want to get a baseline across the entire model. And as we process the imagery for that model, we're trying to balance everything across the entire space instead of shot by shot. So we know that one demand or one request has been to let you take control of that and adjust the image quality settings yourself. We currently don't have that. And if you've noticed that when you're taking your 360 shots, if you are trying to adjust the settings using, say, the 1R or the 1X or the Ricoh Theta app, you'll notice that Capture kind of ignores those and tells the camera to take to override those settings when it takes its shots. And that's why you see this currently, is that we're trying to synthesize across the whole model. We know that having more fine-grained control over image quality and your settings is a thing that we very much like. We've got to figure out how best to do that and how we deal with that in terms of processing our models and balancing how we do image quality across the entire model. That said, I will call out that the 1R, we're still doing some image quality tuning there. So in the current beta, as you see your 1R models, you might see the image quality is a little bit less than you'd expect. And so we'll have some image tuning things coming very soon in our cloud processing pipeline. There was one other question, folks, there's two questions around support for DSLRs, and I think this means DSLRs on a pano head. So to take a 360 with a DSLR, this would fall into the general import 360 class, where however you have managed to get a 360 equirectangular image, you would be able to import that in to create a model. So that's kind of falls into that bucket.
Yeah, as soon as we were able to import anyone's, just any, equirectangular image, 360 pano, that opens it up to all the cameras, essentially. So that's going to be great. Question here regarding mirrors, mirrors being parallel to the ground, so like horizontal mirrors. Is there any way to solve for this? So yeah, I've seen mirrors in ceiling tiles and different places, and even mirrors on tables, right? So the tabletop is like a mirror finish. That's really complicated. That's not an easy thing. There's no marking that you can lay across a horizontal surface right now. Mirrors, trims, and windows and all that, they're just vertical surfaces only. We are working on the ability to eliminate scatter or sprayed mesh that does get put above. If it's something that's on the ceiling, then you'll see a whole bunch of reflected data above the model. So we're working on something that'll be able to get rid of stuff like that to kind of remove things from not just that, but any kind of unwanted stuff. So if you have like an open ceiling, right, and then you're seeing all the beams and the air ducts and whatnot up there, and you want to get rid of that from the dollhouse, that's a thing that's also in the queue. It's just a matter of time. There's a lot going on. So that's the only thing as far as tabletop mirror reflecting down. That's another issue. My best recommendation would be to kind of cover it with like a tablecloth or something. So.
I've got one here. So a question for supporting the LiDAR on the iPad. So for everybody who's not aware, the latest version of Apple's iPad, the early 2020 model, has an active depth sensor, an actual LiDAR sensor on the back of it. And we have been doing experiments with that. So, as for what we call Matterport for iPhone or smartphone capture, you can take the camera in your iPhone or your iPad and rotate around and capture a 360 image that way. And so what we've been doing is going through and experimenting, how can we capture that imagery in addition to the active depth sensing capability so that we have actual depth measurements from that iPad instead of synthesizing the depth from the imagery. So you get a more accurate model. Now, one thing we have noticed is that the LiDAR sensor has a fairly narrow field of view. So typically when we're using the modern iPads and the modern iPhones for smartphone capture, you use the ultra wide camera. So it's got a really wide field of view. you only have to take a few shots as you rotate around. One of the downsides with the narrow field of view is that you just have to take lots and lots of shots. So we are experimenting with that. You should see something from us soon in terms of enabling LiDAR on the iPad for the latest iPad. It's pretty cool that the technology is moving this direction. And so basically, as new technology breakthroughs happen, we're going to keep on making use of those to just expand the different ways that you can create a space.
Yeah, good question. I get that a lot from people who hear about the new iPads with the LiDAR sensor and what that's going to do for us. I have another question from Randall. Can you change the names of the jobs after you download it to your PC? Not recommended. Just keep them the same. The best thing to do, Randall, is what I've done in the past is try and figure out what those models are based on the modified date and the thumbnail, and just create yourself a short text document or like a little spreadsheet that says this folder name, this weird UUID folder name is this model. And once you have that reference as like a short file, you can kind of keep that along with your backup, so you know what folder has what model in it. But you don't want to change the name, because then you're not going to remember what to change it back to. And so maintaining that unique UUID as the name of the folder is really important. Don't change it. Bottom line. All right. What else? A few minutes left. We can get a couple more questions in here.
Yeah, it's got a couple more. So Insta360 has some higher end cameras, also called the Pro or Pro 1 and Pro 2. So just to be distinguish them from Matterport's Pro and Pro 2 camera. These are high-end 360 cameras. They don't have active depth sensors. They do speak the open spherical camera spec, the OSC spec. So we do see the capture can communicate with them and take some shots. There's a few bugs that are in evidence in this experiment that we've done with those. So full support for those cameras is something that's been in our roadmap for a while, but is not coming in the queue very soon. I know this is a common request. Right now, I think we're working the import 360 path first. So imagery taken from those could be imported, but direct integration with the cameras is not something coming very, very soon.
All right. Great question. Dan has a really good question regarding, I think, plans. Are we now able to hold on to original files? We document crime scenes and need the files to, for evidence, in perpetuity. So there's a couple ways of doing that, Dan. One is if you're on the new plan, you can archive those models once they've processed, and you've done whatever you want to do as far as adding matter tags or any other kind of things to the model to make it as you need it. You can archive it. You can archive it forever. It's indefinite. You can have as many models as you want archived. You don't need to activate those models until you actually need to go back to that model, for evidence to take a look at it. So, and then you can activate it, check it out, and then just archive it again. So archiving with the new plans is indefinite, it's forever. And as I just mentioned, you can do that for, as many models as you want. There's no limit with the new plan as opposed to the old plan. So another good reason why you may want to upgrade if you haven't yet from the classic plans. That being said, you can also archive your raw model data and keep that on your own, servers and computers and cloud drives, whatever. And if you need to, let's say you've deleted the model from your account, if you're on a classic plan, for example, you can then restore that model data back into Capture sometime in the future, re-upload it to be reprocessed again into a new model. Of course, that means it's not going to have the highlight reel, it's not going to have the matter tags that you've put in there, but you do get a new model with that's generated based on the same model data. So that's two ways of kind of archiving it. Hopefully that helps.
I know we're very close to time, but I've got one I'll try to sneak in here. So Dean is asking, is there any way for the 3D model as part of the Matter Pack to be a higher density model? Yes. So this is the issue for everybody here is if you purchase a Matter Pack, which is typically what folks in kind of the architecture, engineering, construction, or design build world would use to import into other applications that operate on the point cloud and the mesh. The point cloud that we generate in the Matterpack is a very lightweight version of the original raw data, and that's generated off of our mesh. And so some folks would need and like to have the original high density data, very large files, but they need that kind of fidelity to be able to work with those in their workflows. So we are doing different experiments with ways that we could deliver a high density point cloud as part of the Matterpack or as part of something else in different formats. So we want to make sure that it's industry standard format, understand what kind of options are there and so forth. So I would say, Dean, hit us up at capture-beta@matterport.com, and we're looking for folks to do some experiments with in terms of taking a look at those and getting a sense of what are the needs and what are the key things that they're looking for and that kind of stuff.
Great. Great, and that pretty much does it. I have one more question. I have to answer this. I apologize. But Tom did ask another question, and I think he's been waiting for this for a few weeks now because he's asked this before in another shop talk, so I'll go ahead and answer it. You were told, Tom, to scan a Matterport model with 800 plus scan positions to have everything included in the same dollhouse, and we do have some information that's available that you can break that up into multiple models and use matter tags to kind of link between the two. So my recommendation, yes, you can do that. The matter tag linking between models, you're not going to get one big giant dollhouse. That being said, scanning everything into a single model in Capture, that may not also be able to process. And even if it does process, then what's the navigation experience like? You may run into a situation where you start navigating through and things really start breaking down and becoming very slow because that model is too big. So unfortunately, super large places, convention centers and large malls, there isn't really a great solution for that just yet. It's being worked on. But if you go with the scanning multiple models and linking between them with matter tags, you're not going to get one large dollhouse. If you go with the one large dollhouse, as we may have recommended, what you can do is upload it, see that it processes, see that what the navigation experience is like. If it does break down or if it can't process, what you can do is on your Capture app, you can actually create a duplicate of that model data as many times as you want, have several duplicates, and from one duplicate, delete everything except for one region, from another duplicate, delete everything except for another region, and that way you have these small duplicates that are like a subset of the model data. Upload those to create smaller sections of the overall model. You're not gonna get one big dollhouse, but what I'm getting at is start by trying to scan everything into a single model, see if it works. If it doesn't, then you can break it up. If you start by with a broken up model, it's very difficult and time consuming to put it together into a single model. It requires our stitching team to help with that and so on and so forth. So if you can avoid it, try to avoid it. That's all I wanted to say. Hopefully that answers your question, Tom. And with that, we're going to end this one. Really appreciate everybody and your attendance, your fantastic questions for me, for Kirk, for Indy, and thank you very much to Kirk and Indy for joining us today and telling us all about beta and what's to come. So appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Amir.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care, everybody, and we'll see you in Shop Talk. And there will be a follow-up email to this with links to the video of this recording as well as the video that I presented earlier. So check that out. Okay. Thanks. Take care, everybody. Bye.